Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode. This is 481 episodes, and last week, Friday, we arranged a debate on robot rights. So today we have a new discussion and dialogue on robot rights because we get a huge response from audience. The audience they want to know the robot rights. They want to know the future of robots. So we have our world famous scientist, Professor Dr. David Chiok. He did a lot of research on robotics and engineering. He also published high quality research paper. He is editor of chief. Side by side, he has a lot of innovations, different initiative like Nikola Tesla Graduate School, World Talent Economy Forum, actually partner of Nikola Tesla Graduate School. He is working with B Lab as well as I University Japan. So this is very great initiative. Even though next year, February, we're gonna launch the largest conference in India. Already we are working with different countries, prime minister office, different corporations and academy. Hopefully one of the largest initiative we will take in India, one of the big palace, we will arrange our conference. Professor Adrian David Chiok will be our conference chair. So Professor, what you want to share with our audience about your initiative for robot rights?
Yes, hello. Very good to meet you all. First of all, Sharif, Dr. David Levy sent me an email. He said he's logged in, but no one else is there.
Okay. I can send the StreamYard again. I can send the StreamYard again, I believe. Yes.
Maybe we can start again, Sharif.
Yes.
Okay.
You can continue, no problem. He can join with us. No
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Professor, like what you want to share your views, especially for robot rights?
Well, I think it's a very interesting topic, and right now, it's robots are quite sophisticated, but not to the level where we think they are similar to humans or other living beings. So, we have industrial robots. We do have some humanoid robots, which are quite sophisticated. And we also have cars, which are, if you look at this driverless cars, like Tesla's making and other companies, that's basically a robot, right? It's a car that can drive by itself. But even though with all of those different kind of robots, there's people don't think they are at the level of the maybe intelligence or sophistication of a human being or other animals. But we do give rights not only just to humans, but also animals have rights in most countries. There's the animal rights. So we seem to give rights to beings that we think are living, right? So we don't have rights for for example, rocks or trees or things like that. Or trees are living, but we seem to have rights for animals and humans. So I think right now it's a very interesting problem, issue and discussion. Yet at this stage, the robots we probably don't think are sophisticated enough to give rights to. But I think we should look at the Hollywood, because Hollywood is always a very good prediction of the future, right? So the if you look at Hollywood movies, they often predict the future. So if you look at, for example, Star Wars, there's some robots which are not so sophisticated, but
Hi.
other robots. Oh, hi, David.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Professor.
Morning.
Dr. David Levy. Yes, Professor Adrian. Yes.
Yeah, so if you look at Star Wars, there's some robots which are maybe not very sophisticated, but other ones which are very intelligent, look very intelligent in the movies. And if you look at the movie Blade Runner, the robots are actually made from um, the same flesh, kind of they're like, and they're like robots, but they're not purely made from mechanical objects, right? So I think that Hollywood gives us uh, the a very good prediction when we will give robots rights. For example, in Star Wars, you have very, very intelligent robots. Probably we will give some rights to those robots. And in Blade Runner, the robots are kind of half human, right? Because they're made out of um, they're made out of flesh and blood, and so even though they're robots, right? And probably we would give them rights as well. In fact, when we watch Blade Runner, we feel sorry for the when they're killing the replicants, right? So I think that gives us a good idea when the average person would think robots have rights. One is when they are very, very intelligent and they seem as intelligent as humans. Another one is when they are made from living material, like humans and animals. Then we probably would give them some rights, just like we give animals also rights.
Professor Dr. David Levy, you are very famous scientist for robot rights. Even you said that in 2050, human and robot gonna marry. Last week we have an excellent debate. There is important aspect that already Saudi Arabia they give citizenship to Sophia. So what do you think? Even though we are working with many developing nations, but I believe that many young community, youth community, they have keen interest about robotic engineering. So what will be future? What will be the benefit if you share with our audience?
Well, I believe, first of all, I agree with what Adrian was saying about when the time will come that people will start to give robots rights. My general feeling is that robots are becoming more and more accepted as some sort of being between humans and artifacts. And they're moving towards becoming our friends and our companions. And as they move more and more towards us in the way that we interact with them, we are already beginning to interact with them in some of the ways that we interact with other people. And that is going to happen more and more as they become more lifelike, as they develop better conversation, as they look more lifelike. And I think that will be a gradual process. And in parallel, I think people will start to accept that robots should have rights, because for example, if they are exactly like us in every respect, then of course they should have rights, because we have rights. They should have the same rights as us. So I think the extent to which robots will have rights and the timing will depend on exactly when robots become so much like us that they're almost indistinguishable from humans.
Thank you. Professor Abdian, you are a innovators and you innovate a lot of technologies, especially you are trying to give different aspects. It's really, really have multidimensional things you already invent. My question is that when we are living in Industry 4.0, as well as we are moving to the other part of the world, because example we are working with developing world still they have to achieve many things. How this kind of thought and innovations, especially what you innovate through your throughout your careers, will be helpful for developing world. uh, how you want to share your views, because this AI, robotics, this kind of things, developing nations believe that it will be great threat for their employment. So how does it work? How human and robot can work together, and how we can develop a better economic system in this challenging world?
Well, yeah, you're right. In developing world, maybe there's not so much need for automation because the labor is quite cheap. So, but I think whether it's developing world or developed world, there's definitely going to be some advantage of robots. For example, now we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic, and in developing world they have a lack of the doctors and nurses. So robots can be used in the medical profession. So we can, I think, even in developing world, we can find applications for robots that will help the developing nations, and also um, uh, the as countries become more developed, then people will have more middle class jobs, and in that case, robots can do a lot of the like factory work and labor that is done maybe in developing world now.
Thank you. Professor David, Dr. David Levy, what's your view, especially for these developing worlds, how they can make a better ecosystem with the help of modern AI, this robotics, artificial intelligence, and Industry for things. Even we have a plan actually next year, February, with Professor Adrian. He will be our chair for Nikola Tesla Technology Conference. We are launching one of the largest conference in India, and I believe already we are working with different countries, Prime Minister office. They will support our initiative. Many corporations gonna join. Our objective, we want to be a good advocate for modern science, engineering, and technology. So, what is your view? How we can work together? How we can develop a better ecosystem?
Well, my view is based very largely on my belief that it won't be very long before artificial intelligence is able to help us solve many of the really vital problems in the world. If we think about the developments in artificial intelligence during recent years, particularly in the field of learning, deep learning, and solving problems that can be that can be contributed to by deep learning, we can see that artificial intelligence is able now to perform at a level the same, or in many cases the better than the best humans. For example, there's a university in Texas that has developed a artificial intelligence system for looking at mammograms of women's breasts to detect breast cancer, and it's faster, cheaper, and more accurate than the best doctors in this field. And medicine, I think, is a major area where artificial intelligence will make massive contributions, both in diagnostics and in being able to design drugs and to determine what is the best regime to be carried out by doctors in order to help cure patients of certain complaints, to the point where I believe that AI will be used on a very personal level. When you go to your doctor, your GP, in 20 years' time, I think you'll start at least by talking to a robot, which will ask you various questions and it will carry out various tests, and it will be more accurate in its diagnosis than the human GP in your doctor's surgery, and it will also determine what is the best thing to do to help cure or treat your medical problem. And that, of course, can be a wonderful thing for developing countries. Now, in all the developing countries in the world, there are many people who don't even have access to doctors. I mean, just think about villages in Africa, in in the Indian subcontinent, in other poor areas of the world, villages where there is no doctor, not even a nurse. But when artificial intelligence gets to the kind of stage that I've just been describing, it will be possible for those villages to have on a mobile phone the computing power necessary to act like a human doctor. And that will save millions and millions of lives, billions of lives, and will help to treat people. And I think this is one of the biggest problems facing the world today, the problem of the lack of sufficient medical care and the fact that so many people do not have access to doctors and nurses.
Yes, excellent. This idea is really important. Even World Talent Economy Forum, we are getting huge response from around the world. They need medical, like peoples, like nurse, the doctors, and if we can produce this kind of robots, I believe that it will be really, really helpful. And you are correct. Actually, in developing world, there are many places they have a lack of doctors and others. So maybe it will be very good solutions for us. Professor Adrian, you have excellent university, Nikola Tesla Graduate School. I will discuss with you about these things, but from Mahdi Hassan, he wants to know: is there any negative side of the right of robots? What problem will arise if they get the rights to everywhere, like a human? Yeah, Professor Adrian.
Well, in my opinion, we have to be careful of the dangers that will arise when robots become not only endowed with rights but with more intelligence. It's been for many years. Science fiction books have published stories about robots that take over the world, as people say. That they become so intelligent that they're smarter than us. They'll be able to reproduce themselves. They'll be able to make copies of themselves. And because they're more intelligent than us, they could become a kind of master race. And this is not just a far-fetched science fiction. It's a possibility. As somebody, as a person or a group of people become more intelligent than others, they can become a danger to the others. And this is a very real problem. I don't know what the answer is, but it's certainly a problem that needs to be addressed by society in the years between now and when robots reach that stage. If we wait until robots are as intelligent or more intelligent than us, and when they have intellectual powers and even physical powers that supersede ours, if we wait until then to try and do something about the impending problems, it will be too late. We have to start thinking now, and we have to start thinking now about what kind of rights we will give to robots and how we will control the rights we give robots. Because let me give you an example. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that society generally decides that robots should not be allowed to be used in wars, in fighting battles. Okay? And countries sign big agreements to that effect. And then you have a country like North Korea that says, well, that's really great. No other countries in the world are going to have robots that can be effective on the battlefield. So we'll just develop them, and then we'll be able to win a war against any other country. This is a major problem. The problem of getting the whole world, every single country, every single administration, to accept that certain restrictions are going to be necessary. And that's another problem that I can't actually think of a solution for. It's something that society needs to think about.
Thank you, Professor Adrian. What you want to add for these questions? And Monica also has another question. What are the rights of a robot, and as we expect? Like if you give some detailed explanations. Yeah. Professor
Well,
Adrian. Yes, Adrian. Yes.
well, I think the answer to the question is what we've been discussing, that when robots do become more sophisticated or more lifelike, or as I was saying, made from living materials like flesh and blood, like humans are, then robots will probably have more rights. But we're not. It's not guaranteed. I mean, that's what that's what I predict. But we can't guarantee that because animals didn't have rights for a long time. It wasn't until recently when when countries brought in animal rights laws comparatively recently. So it might take a very long time. It might take hundreds of years. Um, and what Dr. David Levy said was very correct about that's the huge challenge we're going to face is that sooner or later robots will become more sophisticated than us probably, and there'll be a very big danger of robot soldiers in the battlefield. And as he said, we should start thinking about this now. But if I look at society over the last 2 years, I'm very pessimistic because everyone saw the coronavirus pandemic coming, but basically almost no country managed to stop coronavirus. Right, so if they can't stop I'm not sure if a virus has a brain, but if they can't even stop a tiny virus, how are they going to stop something like an intelligent robot? I think now in the whole world, only China has COVID zero. So maybe there will be some countries like China which can control the robots, but most countries will just give up, like Australia has given up now.
I think Adrian is right, and he's made a very good point that as society has developed over thousands of years, rights have also developed. For example, if we think back to Roman times, slaves did not have rights. And for many years, or many centuries, women did not have rights. And then people from different races did not have rights, animals did not have rights, but all of these groups now have rights. And so as society develops, more and more groups will get rights. So I think Adrian's point is a very valid one. We don't know how long it will be before robots get rights, but it's certainly coming. It's part of a progression in society to give rights to different groups of people and different entities. If you think about companies, a corporation is not human, but it is treated in some ways as though it is human. If you own a company and your company owes money, then it's a bit like if a person owes money and somebody, the person that you owe money to or the company owes money to can go to court and say, this company owes me money. I want the judge to force them to give me the money. So in some respects, already non-human and non-living entities have rights and responsibilities. So it's only a matter of time. And Adrian's right. We don't know whether it's going to be soon or 50 years or 100 years, but it's only a matter of time before robots get rights.
Excellent. Professor Adrian, you are also working in academia, and like developing world has huge community. They are young, and they are actually youth. I believe example in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, the South Asia, even the Asia Pacific. I believe 50 to 57% actually youth. So how actually these youth communities? I know you have a great initiative. I want to share with our audience. Even Dr. David Levy, if you have a interesting initiative, you can share with us because we are advocate for modern science, engineering, and technology. This is Professor Adrian's initiative, Nikola Tesla Graduate Schools. We will organize a Nikola Tesla Technology 21st Century Conference in India next year, February. So how actually your initiative can create a knowledge-based communities for the developing world, because in Asia Pacific 50 to 57% actually youth. So how your university, your lab, your different conference and initiative can help the youth communities, and how you want to send your message. That we have more than 100 of groups already. We share our contents, so when people has time, they can join and they can comment. So it will be very effective message for the developing worlds and for the youth community. So what do you want to share, Professor?
First, I want to say that Dr. Levy was one of the first people to join the graduate school and help me out on that, setting that up. So thank you. to Dr. Evelevi. I think one of the main points is that in the developing world, it's difficult to have access to quality researchers and research. So the Nikola Tesla Graduate School, we want to make it online and accessible to anyone in the world. So a lot more people, like you said, many people who are youth in India, um, Pakistan, and other countries can have access to quality research, masters and PhD, um, and there's a lot of unlocked talent, surely, out of all of those people, right? And I think it's just a matter of developing the talent. Actually, I have an interesting story. I was watching the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympic Games last night, 2 nights ago, and India, which has more than 1 billion people, they only sent like I think 2 or 3 people to the Winter Olympics, right? This seems really weird to me. So, out of more than 1 billion people, they just sent 2 or 3. So I think it's not the talent. Surely, if they trained 1 million people how to ski, there'd be much more people from India at the Winter Olympics, right? So I don't think it's genetics. I think basically, if you have 1 billion people, you pick any topic, maths or skiing or running, you can develop the talent. So I think this means that there's a lack of development of the youth, not the lack of talent. Is they don't have the opportunities to develop their talent.
Yes. Uh, Dr. David Levy, what you want to share, especially for the youth communities, how they can develop their knowledge in AI and robotics engineering. We have many startups in developing worlds. Now they are competing, they are developing, but it's not enough. How we can improve in knowledge-based communities for these developing worlds? Yeah.
Well, Adrian has just explained the importance of having a very large number of people participating in a particular activity in order to have some percentage of that large number who become excellent. He gave the example with skiing that if you teach a million, if you teach a billion people to ski, you'll have amongst them some very good skiers. So I think the answer to your question about the youth is that we must address all the youth worldwide using online teaching to better educate young people. And that's becoming more and more possible as time goes on. And when young people everywhere have the opportunity to take part in learning activities online, then the number of young people who are working in the field, for example, of robotics or artificial intelligence or mathematics, any academic discipline, the number will increase dramatically. So I think this is the real key to many of the world's problems being solved for the future. It's to educate more people, bring education to everyone. There should not be any young person in the world who is unable to improve their education through the use of online learning.
Thank you. Yes, online learning is very important. Another things, even though as I'm from developing world, I face a challenges because I run different kind of academy, different language barrier is a big issue. So when we develop this kind of online initiative and academy, I believe that if we want to interact with different cultural peoples, different countries people, I believe language also play a very big role. So maybe this is one of the important things if we can uh, uh, like convince the local ecosystem, like local cultural people, local professor, as well as the people like you, professor like you, if they engage with the team, they lead the team, maybe it can be more productive. I just want to go for criticize, but example like EDX, Udacity, they have very good initiative. But I believe that this kind of initiative will be more successful if they can engage with the local ecosystem. That's why we are actually inviting Professor Adrian and all of his team to India to launch this B Lab and launch this Nikola Tesla technology, because we have to engage with the local ecosystem, local cultures, and we have to share our views and our opinion. By this way, we can develop a sustainable ecosystem. So, Professor Adrian, we are discussing about robot rights. Do you believe in the futures these robots and human create a lot of conflicts, or like it will be effective solution for the future?
I don't think we have. I don't think our opinion will change the course of the history. So, or the future. Sorry, uh, but sooner or later, robots will become more and more sophisticated, more and more intelligent. Maybe they'll be made out of, living, um, like DNA materials, etc., etc. So I think that it's maybe not really in our control. The technology has its own destiny, so to speak, and so we it's just like, yeah, as David was saying, Dr. Levy was saying about women's rights. Well, yeah, there was people who were very much against women's rights for a long time, and they were against it. And even now, if you go to like Saudi Arabia or the Taliban or something, then the women don't really have a lot of rights, even in 2022, right? So, but the general course is that it couldn't be held back. In general, the woman demanded the rights and they got it in 90% of the world, right? So it just can't be stopped. So it's just like, I think it's a similar question to saying like 100 years ago, so can we, will we allow women to have rights to work and vote and whatever? It's an academic question because it was not in those people's control. It was a matter of destiny, I think. And I think very similarly, uh, technology will have a destiny. And yes, just like women still don't have rights in like Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia or something, yes, robots will not have rights in every place in the world either. But you have to look at the German word zeitgeist, the kind of the spirit of the times. Basically, in most parts of the world, robots will eventually have rights, and I think it's unstoppable.
Dr. David Levy, what you want to add?
Well, I'd like to come back on something that you said a couple of moments ago, Sharif, when you mentioned the difficulties that would be faced in education by the fact that there are so many languages in the world. We need to, if you think about the progress that's been made in the last 20 years in human-computer conversation and in language translation, to give you a simple example now, Google Translate can produce an understandable translation of from any one language into any other language. It's not perfect, and it will be a long time perhaps before it is perfect, but it's already good enough, in my opinion, to enable automatic translation of all teaching material. And with the help of text-to-speech technology, it means that if a professor is teaching, if Adrian, for example, is teaching a course in English, he's speaking English to teach a course in one of his areas of expertise, that could be translated and spoken in any other language simultaneously. We're not that far away from being able to do that. I would think certainly within 10 years, there'll be online courses at universities and schools that are carried out simultaneously in several languages.
Excellent. Professor, another things I just want to know, research is very important when we discuss about AI, robotics, different kind of industry 4.0s. Even from our side, for developing world, there are many corporations. We are requesting the corporation you should invest more in research. Uh, uh, and definitely we have world class researcher like Professor Adrian, Dr. David Levy. Definitely they can monitor and they can manage high quality research. So what you want to say? What you want to say? Definitely this kind of discussion and dialogue. Naturally, we share with many largest corporations and government body and academy. Uh, I believe that we need to invest more in research. What is your view, especially from the developing world? Uh, what you want to share, Dr. David Levy, and then Dr.
Well, I agree with you completely. It's a question of resources. Researchers have to be paid. They work um, just like other people work, and they have to be paid for their work. Um, Being a researcher is a very interesting and sometimes a very challenging job, but we need as many researchers as we can find in order to push forward the frontiers of knowledge in branches of technology, science, medicine, and so on. So it is a question. It is a question of money. And going back to Adrian's point about having a billion skiers, if you have a billion researchers, you're going to make faster progress in researching various fields than if you have a much smaller number. And we can see this happening already in China. From my experience in the fields in which I'm interested, I see a rapidly increasing number of high quality research publications coming from China in more or less every aspect of computing and artificial intelligence. So it shows that the Chinese government is actively encouraging academic work and research, and of course they're plowing the money into it, and that's very necessary. So it's a question of resources. If a country wants to have stronger research, it needs to invest more resources, either the government or industry or both.
Excellent. Professor Adrian, what you want to add? Even I know the developing world, they use huge amount of money for movie superstar, for cricketers. But we are approaching to the government, to the corporation. Regularly, we are communicating. They should invest more. And your organizations also working with World Talent Economy Forums, and we are heavily involved with this industry and academy and corporations as well as this government body. What is your advice and what you want to add, especially investing in research? What is your view? What kind of strategy government should take?
Well, I think even developing world um, countries have resources for setting up laboratories. I would like to say the example of I set up Imagineering Institute in Malaysia, and it was funded by the Malaysian government, which is maybe a middle ranking country for the economy, but economic scale. But we had very good resources, and we could train a lot of engineers, Malaysian engineers, and I hope they can spread their knowledge in as they now have gone to different careers. But yes, if every country I think has resources to set up laboratories, and it can, and so it's just a matter of you know assigning a priority on education, on research, because these are things which will affect the future. But it's happening everywhere, and even Nepal. We had some we know very 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 good talent in Nepal uh, for computer science, and we had a conference many years ago, me and Dr. Levy in Nepal, in Kathmandu, and there was a lot of very clever, talented, like robotics youth wanting to learn about robotics. So I think every country does have the ability and talent, and if the government can allocate the resources, that will allow the talent to develop.
Thank you. Dr. David Levy, like when we discussing about research and investment, we know we have many partners from the developed worlds for developing world. Example, United Nations, World Bank, even IMF, JICA, many of the partners actually working with developing world. Do you believe that in their policy, when they investing in the developing world, they should focus more on research and innovations, and they should encourage the local ecosystem to contribute in that area? Or what is your advice for this developing nations partner, those who actually support economically for for their development?
Well, I have no expertise in raising funds for research development, so it's probably not something that I can give you a good answer on. All I can say is that more resources are needed, and more resources are needed, and where they come from is less important than the fact that they can be generated. I think every country has to do what it can to try to attract more investment in research and development.
Thank you, Professor Adrian. What's your advice, especially when the developing world also planning for adapting Industry 4.0? What type of courses or what type of degree they should focus, and how they can develop the curriculums, their educational plans? What is your advice? Because we want to go in depth, and definitely we want to solve this kind of problem, especially when there is a lackings of uh, good intellectual communities, we cannot progress to the next level. So, Professor Adrian, what's your advice?
Again, I think it's a matter of prioritization, and you know, the researchers we can can do the job if they're given enough resources. So it becomes more of a political problem. Political issue is that how can we get the politicians to assign more funding to the researchers and to the youth, um, to come up with new inventions which will benefit the future.
Thank you. Beside that, I want to go to the different angles of this dialogue. Like, Professor, do you believe that this your initiative, especially Nikola Tesla Graduate School, this initiative can help the youth communities, like as it is online, the how student can join and they can learn different kind of research related activities from you and from your faculty. I believe Dr. David also part of your Nikola Tesla Graduate School. Yes. Yes,
Well, I think the
Professor.
online aspect makes it accessible to everyone around the world. So already we have students from developing world joining, especially from Africa and India. But I think as we go along, and hopefully we can get some funding um, for the Nikola Tesla Graduate School, and then after the pandemic is hopefully over, sooner or later, we can start to build campuses and around the world, including in India, for example, and have research and laboratories uh, for the youth in different countries all around the world. So that's what I think will be very, very great and helpful for the young talent, young students, and young inventors.
Thank you. Dr. David Levy,
I
what
just
you
I
want
just
to
want
add?
to say, I just want to say, Nikola Tesla himself is a good example. He was born in a small town in what is now Croatia, what at the time was the Austrian Empire. His father was a priest, a Serbian Orthodox priest. So quite they were quite poor. Um, his sister, had was sick and died when he was young. A lot of difficulties, but Nikola Tesla made it. He tried his hardest. He went to Vienna. Actually, he failed the university. He dropped out of university even, but he became the greatest inventor, one of the greatest inventors of all time, Nikola Tesla. So Nikola Tesla himself gives inspiration to the young people, no matter where they are in the world, you can do it if you try hard enough. Nikola Tesla himself, if you looked at how poor he was, and he was in a basically backwater town in the middle of nowhere at that time, and he made it to be greatest inventor in the world. And he went to New York City and made many fantastic inventions. So Nikola Tesla himself gives inspiration. We should follow his example.
Thank you. Thank you. Beside that, I just want to add because I think Professor Adrians and Dr. David, you have a great research journal, especially for this. Just a moment.
Future Robot Life.
Yes, a future of robot. Yes.
Future Robot
Yes,
Life.
if you yes, if you share some of the things, because we have many young researchers, they may learn about your future robot lives, these journals, and they may publish. Yes, Dr. David Levy, what you want to add?
Well, the Journal of Future Robot Life is its purpose is exactly what you would guess from the title. It's a journal that attracts papers about the way that robots will become part of society, and it covers all aspects of robot development. So I think anybody who is interested in what robots will be able to do in the future will find something in this journal to interest them, and it's free of charge. It's available on the internet, and it's a very young journal. We only started our first issue really in the last year or two, but it's going to develop, and we have a growing team of researchers who act as a sort of editorial team. And we consider all papers submitted to us on subjects related to the future possibilities of robots.
Thank you, Professor Adrian. What you want to add?
Basically, what Dr. Levy said was correct, and please read the journal. There's lots of good papers in there, and also please submit your papers. Write your papers and submit them. Anyone can submit, and it goes through the peer review process. I think three reviewers, and so you can get published in the journal. So read the journal and please submit to the journal as well.
Thank you. There are some other questions from audience. I just want to add, Alia want to know, do you believe people have good reason to fear artificial intelligence machine going rough? Like what you want to say?
Well, I think I already answered this question. Yes, I do think people have. I do think people have reason to fear the development of robots in the future if they're not if the developments aren't controlled, or robots aren't controlled sensibly. The European Union already has a committee looking at what kind of laws should be made in connection with the use of robots. So that's one way of looking at the problem. But as I've mentioned, there's no way we can really stop countries that want to create robots to do bad things. And so I think we have to be very careful in the way that robot development is allowed in the future. But as I said earlier, I don't have an answer to the problem. I can see the problem. And I think Elias' question is a very valid one.
Thank you. Professor Adrian, what you want to add for this new Fazin? Do you think we will ever live in a world where robot can do anything? Yes, I believe already he gave the answer that robot can do anything. So how actually these young people, the young community, those who come as an audience and those who are asking questions, how they can go for a collaborative approach with the robots, and how government can develop better policy for that, because we are observing, let's say, different technology come in the developing world, example, e-commerce, then different businessmen manipulate it, and it become problem for the people. But if we have a good policy, then it can be helpful for the developing worlds. So what you want to add, Professor Adrian, especially for the policy, even we want your support, Dr. David Levy support for policy developments for developing world, especially for Industry 4.0.
I think I should take a good look at what happened in China. I mean, I remember, I think I first went to China maybe 15 years ago, and at that time it was still in the transition. But I was amazed by the facilities and the laboratories and the universities and the equipment that they had. So still half the people are living on subsistence wages and working in factories, but they didn't wait for the whole country to become rich before they developed all this incredible infrastructure. In fact, in some ways, easier for them to develop infrastructure because the labor is so cheap. So they could build like massive and incredible campuses and universities. So I think China is a very good example. It didn't wait in a linear way, it didn't develop the way that, let's say where Dr. Levy is in England. It got developed kind of in a linear way, right? So you had the Industrial Revolution, and then step by step the country got richer and richer, more and more sophisticated. Well, China did that in 10 years, and they didn't wait for all the population to be middle class before they did that. There's still a lot of very poor people in China. I think that's the way of the world now. You have to look at the what did China do, and many countries can do that. They can relatively speaking, investing $100 million might seem like a lot of money, even for a developing country, but it's not really. Um, it's kind of drop in the ocean, even for developing world. But you can build some massive, fantastic resources and campuses. So I think developing countries should look to what China did, and can emulate that model. By the way, that model was South Korea's model for that, right? South Korea actually was one of the poorest countries in the world, and now it's one of the richest countries in the world, right? So, and they decided to invest heavily in car manufacturing and making microchips and things, even while half the country is starving, right? So, but then now they're a very, very rich country. So I think this is the new model. You don't wait, you just invest, and the country will catch up.
Absolutely. I think Singapore is another very good example. I remember the first time I went to Singapore, I was speaking to a government minister there, and he said that we realized a long time ago that our biggest our biggest resource in this country is our people. And so we decided to educate our people as much as possible. And look at Singapore now. It's one of the very top educated countries in the world, and they're very advanced in every way. So I think this is a good example of how countries can grow their economies and their cultures and develop very quickly if enough resource is put into education. So I would say anybody who wants to get involved in the coming revolution in robotics and artificial intelligence should just study those subjects, study them online, try to study them at school, at college, university, educate yourselves and look for the opportunities to learn more. And for countries, invest more in courses in these subjects.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to share another good informations because World Talent Economy Forum as well as this Nikola Tesla Graduate Schools with Professor Adrian, we are planning to launch our largest conference next year. So already this MIT Adit, this palace, actually they are communicating with us. They are very much interested to work with us. So Professor Adrian, what you want to share about your conference next year. And hopefully it will be one of the largest conference. We are already working with different countries' prime minister office, different corporations, academies. Hopefully it will be one of the largest initiative from the developing world, from the Asia Pacific. I believe more than 100 corporations they're going to join, and more than 100 scientists like you they're going to join, and we are already start working on these projects. So Professor Adrian and Dr. David Levy, what you want to share? I believe that our audience will be really motivated if they get chance to join in this conference.
Well, when I thought about this conference, the first person I wrote to, as always, was my good friend David, and he immediately said yes. He would like to be a co-chair for the Nikola Tesla Technologies Conference, and I have to thank you, Sharif, for getting this palace. And I already said to Sharif I want to stay in the palace, so he said yes, I can, and I think David also would like that too. So I think. Well, I've done many conferences over the years, and I wanted to go back to my little bit of my roots. You know, I studied as an undergraduate as an electrical engineer and working on electric motors, electric machines, and and I want to go back to that and let's look at the technologies. How did Nikola Tesla affect the 21st century? Well, he invented AC power. He basically was inventing the radio waves, wireless power, um, and all. Even if you think about internet, if you go back to the roots, it's really going back to Nikola Tesla's patents. Even though not many people know that. So I think that's why I wanted to have a conference which went back to the roots of the invention and the technology, which is important for the 21st century. And that's at this time of my life. I just turned 50 last month, end of last year. I think I wanted to go back to my roots a little bit because I've been doing conferences on entertainment and also with Dr. Levy on love and sex with robots. But I wanted to go back to the roots of the technology, and that's what led me to want to create this conference based on Nikola Tesla's legacy. And actually, I'm already thinking of another one of my heroes is Alan Turing. So Nikola Tesla basically is the grandfather of electronics, electrical engineering. But Alan Turing is basically the godfather of computers. So I'm already thinking of in 2023, we should have a Alan Turing conference. Basically, what I want to tell you is I'm very excited at the basic technology again, as I was when I was a young teenager.
Thank you, Dr. David. What you want to share with our audience, especially for this conference?
Well, I fully support what Adrian is doing in planning the conference, and I'm looking forward to it very much. And I think it could be the beginning of a very exciting development in the worldwide education of people in the field of robotics, artificial intelligence, and other electronic and electrical applications.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Adrian, I am actually impressed by your work. That's why World Talent Economy Forums always want to support your initiative. We produce more than 480 episodes, more than 1,000 of organizations. They already joined from 100 different countries in World Talent Economy Forums. And we always want to be a advocate for modern science, modern engineering, and technology. And you are one of the key person who actually motivate me and my teams for engage with this kind of things. And definitely, this is the things that developing world they have to involve. I know even a country like Bangladesh, they invest more than $5 billion for a startup, but they need result. So I'm sure that professor like you, Dr. David Levy's, and this kind of people actually guide the nations. So World Talent Economy Forum, always we want to contribute for national developments. We do a lot of work for public-private partnership. So hopefully your contributions from this conference will change a lot of economical strategy for developing world. And I believe this is the way. Knowledge is ultimately the way of minimizing the gap. The more we know, the more we understand, and the more we invest on technology, we can understand to about the first world, and we can engage with the first world. So thank you, Dr. Adrians. Thank you, Dr. David, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. I request all of our audience, please share our content with your government, with your corporation, with your academy. I'm sure these are the people, these are the right people, those who have right kind of knowledge, expertise. We should learn from them. We should engage with this kind of people, and we have to share your views. And I request all of the corporations, please invest in this kind of technologies, invest in this kind of research. This is ultimately the way of developments. So definitely we will discuss with more corporation about this investment of these projects. So definitely your projects will be very, very helpful for this global community. Thank you, Professor Dr. Adrian. You are also part of our board of advisors. Dr. David Levy, I want to invite you in our board. There are many, many like high quality people from around the world. I think more than 50 scientists and politicians and corporations, they join in World Talent Economy Forum. I'm sure you will be impressed by our work. We are very much action oriented. We want to take actions. So maybe these projects, this conference, Nikola Tesla Technology Conference, will be great initiative for developing world. And by this way, we can learn from each other. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for
David.
inviting us.
Thank you.